Okay, good morning. We are continuing in letter number 15. We mentioned this letter was an extremely foundational letter on the subject of the 10 spheres, the 10 powers that God used to create the world or express godliness, also the 10 powers of the soul. And we're basically, the concept we're discussing is that a person looking at themselves, and we don't mean the physical body, we mean a person looking at their neshama, looking at their own self, can understand and get a glimpse into God. And the question that we had in our mind was, what do we think our connection to God is, our relationship, that I look at myself and I don't understand God? Imagine that. Imagine like a cat or a mouse, a frog says, if I only reflect upon myself, I'll fully understand the greatness of a human being, or the greatness of Einstein. What is the assumption that understanding ourselves will give us insight into God? As if we have some sort of common thing, like the old joke about this fly sitting on the back of an elephant.
We're made in the image of God.
So we're going to go there. Very good, very good. A fly's on the back of an elephant crossing a bridge, and the fly turns to the elephant and says, "We really shook that bridge, didn't we?" I mean, our insignificance, we understand ourselves, understand God. So Chava says correctly that we're made in the image of God. But we need a little more than that. And the reason for that is the image of God. What does that mean as far as anything? Meaning, what does it mean the image of God? So there's one layer deeper, and your answer is correct, but one layer deeper is that God created every single thing in this world with speech. But when he created the human being, especially we talk about the Jewish person, he created him with breath. He blew into his nostrils. That act of blowing into his nostrils was giving of self. So created an image of God is correct. But what does that mean? It means that God puts self into us. When a person speaks, it's again, everything's a metaphor, but the disconnect between my words that I said and what it's speaking about. For example, if I talk about science, if I talk about cooking, if I talk about geography, it's words. It's just a bunch of words. The ear that comes out doesn't really have a relationship with anything related to me personally. It's more my thoughts, it's more my feelings, it's more my information that I'm sharing with these words. But when someone blows, you're actually exhausted from it because you got to blow from deep within yourself. So you're giving of self. It's an essence, it's an effort. You get exhausted from blowing. You can't, how many balloons could you fill up, before you get exhausted versus how long could you talk for? Friends that are sitting in a relaxed mode could talk for 8 hours without realizing it. And that's not even exhausting. Maybe exhausting to teach a class of students you have to get their attention to behave, but to talk and schmooze, it's effortless. So the point is that Hashem blew into our nostrils, blew into Adam's nostrils to create or to give over that neshama. So the soul does have a direct part and relationship to God. But we're going to take it a little bit further. And that's what we're going to talk about here, because you want to understand that very clearly. What does that mean, this idea? We're going to take it in the point of understand that we're going to say today that in general, we take the worlds and divide the worlds into 4 categories: Atzilus, Beria, Yetzira, and Asiya. Atzilus is the highest world of this general 4 worlds, and Asiya is the lowest. In Asiya itself, we have 2 parts of Asiya. We have the spiritual Asiya and the physical Asiya. We live in the physical Asiya. Atzilus, which is the highest of the 4 worlds, it's known in that world, it doesn't even exist a world separate from godliness. It's God or godliness and the world are one. There's no separation. It's called Iyu v'gami yuchad v'yuch yuchad. The light and the vessels are one. The godliness and its light is one. It's all oneness. You can't even separate, like in the lower worlds, you can separate Chesed, Gevurah, and Tiferes are created existences. It's not even called a created existence because they're so one with their source that they're absolute oneness. It's like the ray of, you could say the ray of light of the sun, as included to the sun, it loses identity. As you get further from the sun, the rays of light seem to have, hey, I see the ray of light. There's actually a light. It's a beam of light. It's a warmth that you can feel. When the closer you get to the sun, you don't see the light anymore. You're not going to say like, wow, if you're able to land your spaceship on the moon, on the sun, you're not going to go, wow, it's really shiny and bright here, the rays of the sun, because it's lost in the energy of the sun itself. So as you get closer to the source, you lose your identity.
very good analogy because you would be engulfed and taken over if you got too close, which is kind of the same thing that will happen if you get too close to God.
Right. The closer you get to Hashem, the more we lose. And by the way, it's with everything, but particularly with Hashem, the closer you get to it, the more you see its vastness, its greatness, its depth, and the more you get lost. Standing next to Grand Canyon is when you really feel the smallness of it. If you're standing 30 miles away, looking at it from a distance, it's not that impressive. As you get closer, the more you sense the greatness. By God, it's even more because you're overwhelmed by it. It's the source, as we discussed in Shayach L'Emunah.
You get consumed by it.
And you get lost because it's the famous concept is it's how the subject of a book, the person in the book feels when the author walks into the room. Oh, whoa, that's odd. That's awkward. Here's the author, and I'm the thing he's writing about. Meaning, the relationship is not just that you're small in front of him; you cease to exist in identity. The whole book it's in his mind. So, let's start where we're up to here. We're going to start from on page Kuf Chaf Aleph, which is opposite 240. So probably 241 is the right number if you're following in the regular pages of the Tanya. So we're going to understand, and the goal of this is to truly understand what is the 10 spheres. But to get there, the Alter Rebbe has to answer a question. How is it possible to learn from ourselves the 10 spheres? And the second part is going to be, as we'll see, once from ourselves, don't make the mistake of thinking, oh, so that's what they are. Because I see it in myself, that's what it is in the source. In other words, the fact that the metaphor, we'll get to the metaphor with Avraham in a few minutes. But the point is going to be two parts here. Number one, how can we be used as a source to reflect and look into ourselves, meaning look into ourselves doesn't mean our physical body, it means our godly soul, and understand God from that? That's one question. And once we answer that question, why it's doable, don't make the mistake of thinking that they're so similar. Yes, they're conceptually the same, but they're worlds and worlds apart. That's where we're going to go today. Okay. Page Kuf Chaf Aleph, chapter 15. We're about 10 lines down. The last word on the line is sort of apostrophe word, v'afilu. Vav Aleph Fe Yud v'afilu. So we started saying that the reason why we could sort of look into ourselves and see godliness, understand God, and therefore understand the 10 spheres, because after all, we are made up of God. What does that mean? It's our DNA. When you have DNA of something, it's a phenomenal, there's an idea in Chassidus that says, Etzem, when you touch Atzmus, every part has the entirety within it. Before we discovered DNA, there's a very hard thing to understand. What do you mean every part has the entirety in it? But once we discovered something called DNA, we realized it doesn't matter what part of the body you have. Any part of the body, if you could get some of the body part, you can go and see the entire DNA structure, which is of the entire body. A tiny bit of DNA has the entire markings of the entire body, and that means DNA is the essence, the atzmos of the body. Because atzmos, when you get to the essence level, every particle has the entire thing in it. So it's a phenomenon. As science grows and learns more and discovers more, suddenly ideas of Chassidus that maybe our grandparents or even our parents never had. What does it mean when you touch a part of it, you touch all of it? Yeah, DNA. You touch a part of it, everything's in there. The entire, it's hundreds of pages of information on one cell, one drop of DNA. So it's like this. So this essence within us. Now, I started saying that the world is divided. So the world is divided, we said, into 4 worlds. Then within the worlds themselves, and sometimes the worlds themselves are metaphors for this, we have what's called the 5 parts of a soul. A person in the Shom, we spoke about it many times, made up of 5 parts. There's Nefesh, starting from the bottom up. Nefesh, the lowest. Ruach is above that. Then you have Neshama. Then you have Chaya. Then you have Yichida. We want to discuss it. It's good for us to know this now for this chapter. And in general, it's good to know what are these 5 parts in general. We have different times to explain a little bit differently. But in general, we go like this. Nefesh, Ruach, and Neshama. Nefesh level is the action level. Or in our case, we can call it Malchus level. The Malchus level. What does Malchus mean? It's where what's Malchus? Malchus means the entire body has thoughts and intellect and emotions and feelings, and then it expresses itself. The Malchus is speech. That's the door where, that's why Hashem created, why do we say Hashem created the world with speech? Because speech is that way where Hashem finally takes it from within himself and expresses it outward. So we say revelation in speech are identical. When I speak, I'm revealing either honestly or deception what's inside of me. But speech reveals that which is inside of me, my emotions, my intellect, my feelings, my stories, my essence. I share it all with speech. That's how you know. Without speech, you have no idea what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling. You might get an inkling by my body language, but you have no idea what the story is. So speech really is what we call action. Finally, action or speech. Just above that is ruach. Ruach is emotions. So if you want to take the last two of ruach and nefesh, lowest two, that really means za, the six midas, the masculine, and malchus. The lowest two are midas and malchus. Go a step up, neshama, that's intellect. So you have neshama is the higher of the three, which is intellect. Below that you have ruach, which is emotions, za, and then you have below that, which is malchus, which is action, actual doing the mitzvahs, living, physical interaction. If you want to be a little more technical, you could take chaya, you could take neshama, which is the highest of these three, and the next level up, which is chaya, which is the fourth level of soul, the second highest. Those really could be broken down as chachma and bina. You see, even though we said that neshama is seichel, but the truth is neshama is seichel as it comes already into some development form. Above that, you have really what's called chachma. Chachma is the earliest stage of wisdom. You can even call it your subconscious. Your subconscious, that which comes into your mind. Because what's chachma? Chachma is really, we said chachma literally means a flash, right? But what is that flash? That flash is something that comes deep within inside of me. That means, how do I have an idea? When an idea pops into my head, usually it didn't come because I'm trying to think of an idea. It comes randomly. The more incredible ideas come randomly. You're sitting and you go, I got it. You weren't even working on it right now because things come subconsciously up from the depth of your wisdom, because subconscious could work on an emotional level. I have subconscious desires. I have interest and feelings, and I have subconscious intellect. I don't know where it came from, but the idea popped into my head. I just got the solution to this problem that I've had for 2 years, or I got the answer to a math problem, and famously somebody got it in the bathtub. Somebody got some epiphany. That is chaya. So chaya is the chachma of seichel. Neshama is bina of seichel. Ruach is the midas, the emotions, za, and nefesh, the lowest, is malchus. And higher, that doesn't matter for right now, is your true identity. My atzma is my essence. My essence is yichida. That's my deepest self. Now, all these five, 3 of them function within your physical body, meaning my nefesh, ruach, and neshama function within myself. Okay, I gave a lot of information. What's most important from this information? That there's 5 levels of the soul. Nefesh, ruach, neshama, chai, yichida, and there's 4 worlds. That means there's a way each soul exists in each of the 4 worlds. So if I want to say the highest of all levels, I would say is yichida of atzilus. That's the highest of the high. What would I say is the lowest of the low? Is nefesh of asiya. Nefesh of asiya means the lowest level of the soul as it comes into the lowest of the 4 worlds. So that's how you can have it expand. It's like, a plus, a minus, a regular, B plus, each one has layers. So you have, in each of the worlds, you have the 5 layers of the soul. Why is that important? Because the Alter wants to address, it's not just those super great souls that could say, hey, I got a soul of neshama, of atzilus. I can understand by looking at my soul, and I can see Godness in it. But that guy, his soul is nefesh of asiya. It's a watered-down version of a soul. He's going to look into a soul and see Godness. So based on this theory of atzmos, that it's always one, that every single particle has the entirety in it, we understand that every single part of any soul has all of godliness in it. But we can even take it one more way to understand it. What is that? The godliness that's found in our soul down here. Let's say I'm a soul of Nefesh of Asiya. I think it's pretty clear. I don't have to say it. That's this fact. Now, Nefesh of Asiya, the lowest of the souls, where does it get itself from? It comes from Ruach of Asiya, which comes from the Shama of Asiya, which comes from Chaya, which comes from Yechida, which comes from Nefesh of Yetzira, which meaning it's all a flow one into the other, just getting more layers of concealment. But what do you have on the inside at the end is the same original product. That means that same original product, no difference in electricity. I don't know, no difference, but similar to electricity, that you can start off with the highest electricity power coming from the power plant. And finally it comes into the wire coming into your laptop, which has been dumped down through all the processes. It's still electricity from the same plant. So what electricity is there? It's not like we have another supplier for you. For those guys who are using laptops, we got this weak little generator in Chicago. We send you, it all comes from the same place. In other words, in my electricity, it's the same exact electricity that they're getting. They're just getting a stronger measure in a certain sense. Let's see this inside. V'afilu nefesh d'asiya, even nefesh of asiya, which is the lowest type of part of the soul, in the lowest of the four worlds, he ba'ad comes mezivug za'on nukva d'asiya. It comes from the unity of za'on nukva. Za'on nukva, as you mentioned, is a creation. Every single thing in the world, there are probably very rare exceptions in science, has a male and a female, a masculine and a feminine. Now, when a male and a female come together to create a new product, whether it's a plant, whether it's a human being, or anything else, the way it creates it is it has to tap into its deepest part of itself to bring out the power to create. That means when parents are creating a child, they're creating it with their deepest inner essence. That means what's being tapped to with the power of creation, the deepest you, as we explained in the second chapter of Tanya, it comes from the brain of the father. The child comes to the brain of the father. It's explained, we went through this at length. What does that mean exactly? But it comes from the brain of the father, and the brain of the father connects to the child, etc. Which means when you have the nefesh of Asiya behaving in its nefesh form, which is basically Malchus, that means this form connection is that it's Zah, which is a middays of Asiya, or the Ruach of the soul, Ruach and nefesh connecting as a masculine and feminine relationship, taps automatically into its inner essence. What's its inner essence? It's intellect. And what's that intellect's inner essence? Meaning we're unpacking the babushka dolls. And we're going, meaning if you're in, so what's inside there, what's inside there, what's inside there? That's what we're doing here. So you have the final nefesh of Asiya. That Zoh Nukva, that relationship that created it, came from the Mequon of this level, which came from Asiya, which came from the spiritual Asiya, which came from Yetzira, Bria, all the way to Atzilus. That means any level you're going to tap into, if you crack it open and get to its source, is always going to have the original, let's call it the neshama of Atzilus inside you. Difference is, it's like the metaphor I once heard Shais Taub give. If you want to understand the difference between the souls of a great tzaddik and the souls of the rest of us, we all start off in the same place. All souls start off in Atzilus. Difference is the destination that you get there by taking a little People's Express airline with 12 stops to Australia. By the time you got there, you're exhausted and weathered, and you smell like you've been traveling for 2 weeks because you have. Or did you fly in the first class of a Concorde and you got there in 4 hours, refreshed in the Mechaya, and you arrive? We all come from the same place, but now at your destination, how are you? My soul was a long journey getting here. By the time it gets there, it's weather beaten, it's bad, it's damaged, it can't see clearly, it can't hear clearly, it's dizzy, it's not focused. That's my soul. The soul of the tzaddikim, they come fresh from Atzilus. But they all start in the same place. The difference only is what is your identity when you get here. Did you get watered down? Did you get the cover with schmutz? Did you get distracted? Did you get, etc. So we said, I feel nefesh d'asiya, ibam is zivug zon nukva d'asiya. It comes from the zivug of Zah, which is the middays, and nukva, which is the malchus of Asiya. And that, in order for that to happen, it has to tap into its own moichin. As we said, every creation of a child comes from the brain of the father. It's that stimulation from the brain that goes down the spinal cord, etc., to go and actually make this process of creation. And it has inside of it its moichin, which is the very top of its world of Asiya. And they have inside of it, which is the chaya and the neshama, and the kelim, the zonukva atzilus. Eventually, if you go back far enough, it comes back from the zonukva, the middays, and the malchus of atzilus. That means within each and every one of us, no matter what soul you have, you might say, okay, I understand, this big tzaddik, he looks into a soul, he can see God, because his soul is fresh off the Concorde first class. I look at him. Oh, you come from this great city where it's great and beautiful. Plus, look at you. Well, you don't even look like the guy who left Wisconsin. By the time you got to Australia, I recognize you. It's true, but if you take a shower, you clean off. I mean, if you get past all the layers, you'll see it's the same exact person inside, and that's the point here. Shaheim elikus mamush, they are actually godliness. That means every single neshama, no matter how many layers you see, no matter how many coats and how much dust is on it, if you blow off the dust and you wash off the schmutz, you'll see it's the same sparkling godliness inside. And inside that soul, it shines the light of the infinite light. The way it's found from godliness in the Chachma of Atzilus. Chachma is the highest part of Atzilus, of the highest world. In that world, the Iyu v'garmiyu chadir, the light and its vessels are one. B'Atzilus, how it's found in Atzilus. Therefore, he says, V'yalkein, Gam b'nishmas ha'adam, therefore, in every single person, even the regular person has a soul of nefesh d'asiyah, meir erein seif baruchu, it shines inside his soul, that same exact DNA, that same exact infinite light, melubish v'ganuz b'eira chachma shaba, which is enclosed and concealed in the chachma, which texture comes in through all the layers you mentioned before. Lahachiyes is the adam that gives actual life to the person. And therefore, because every single person, really the deepest inside of our soul is the same inside. Once you get to the inside of the candy, at that same yummy, chewy, whatever it is, that same filling inside each one. Therefore, umimena, and therefore, he says, this is the answer to our original question: how could we look at ourselves and see godliness? And exactly as Chava said, because we were created in the image of God, with God blowing His breath into us. That means inside of us is the essence of God. And if we cut open that DNA of any part of ourselves, we'll find the DNA of the entire structure. And therefore, a person can understand a bit. Obviously, it's not going to be identical, as we'll see why soon. With a higher spirit, when we say this, we mean godliness. This is not talking about God itself, but godliness. Because all of godliness, all of the spheres, all of it, if you just look into the person's soul there. So now I'm saying something phenomenal. In the process of telling us that every single yid, no matter where, what, who, and what you are, you have inside you that same exact infinite light that's found in Atzilus, that's just in. And therefore you could look at that and say, if I could only examine this, I could understand godliness, I could understand the 10 spheres. He's indirectly telling us every single yid has the holiest of the holy inside of him. And you see the person seems to be, maybe doesn't keep Shabbos or kosher, look the same, he has body piercings up to a zoo and tattoos, and he just doesn't look. Don't look at the cover, the shell, because that's just the concealment. Inside what's there now, we'd love to have the inside matched. It's like the love of a parent to a child, that yes, it's nice if the kid dresses like a mensch and talks like a mensch and he has a normal, evolved life in a proper, healthy, wholesome way. But if not, the love is still there. It's not like someone says to the child, God forbid, who chose a path or because of various experiences ended up on a path that's not wholesome, that the mother doesn't say, I don't love that one as much. The love is the same. Unfortunately, there are things that hurt and things that are not pleasant. But the love for what you are inside, that doesn't change. You're still my child. You're my little baby. I still picture you when you were a year old, learning how to walk. And I cry when I think about it. Meaning the essence, inherent truth of a yid is part of God. Therefore, we can understand God from it. And therefore, our value is infinite. It's infinite value. Okay. Now, the Alter Rebbe is going to say something fascinating. And this is something you don't find often in Tanya. I think it's only twice in the entire Tanya. That's what I heard. That he says, I want to tell you something I heard from my teacher referring to the Maggid. In general, the introduction to the Tanya, he says everything he has. He calls himself, in the introduction to the entire Tanya, the Alter Rebbe calls himself the compiler. He doesn't call himself the author. The compiler's introduction. I just compiled from things that I heard, that I learned from books and teachers. And we know that when he says books, he means the Arizal and those sort of great holy souls from the Maral of Prague. When he says teachers, he means Baal Shem Tov and the Maggid. Here he says, I learned from my teacher, the Maggid. What is that? And this is going to be, it's a very long sentence. The sentence here is about 20 lines. I'm going to try and do it in one shot now before we've done our class. And if we have to go over it and discuss it more, we'll do that. He wants to make one point. As much as it's true what I just said, No one more caveat. Before he starts, after this, he's going to start explaining this verse. After this, he starts explaining what's Chachma being, all this verse he's going to explain. But he says, before I explain it, one more caveat. As much as it's true that what we have inside of us is a part of God, and from it you can see God, it is so not the original. It is so far from what the original is. So while I was saying it's the same exact thing, it is so not the same exact thing. So let's see this inside. It's fascinating. He says, but he does it in such a fascinating way. He says, we have to give one introduction. Masha Shamaiti Mimedi Alav Shalom, I heard from my teacher, the Magadim, as rich of blessed memory. I'll pasuk on the verse where it says, Avraham Avinu famously said, V'anoichi ofar ve'efer, I am but dust and ashes. Ofar is earth. We say dust, but it really means it's earth, like the ground. Efer is ashes. Ashes are things that were burnt, and all what remains is that burnt black ashes. This was the word that Avraham Avinu used to describe. He was talking, of course, to Hashem. How could I ask you for this? I'm just offer Efer. But we know what he means is he's talking about his soul. He's not talking about himself, his physical body. He says, the soul within me is only Afar ve'Efer. It's earth and ashes. And where does this come from? Chesed Elyon. Avram's neshama, Avram's light comes from Chesed Elyon. Now, you have to understand what this means. Chesed Elyon is the highest source of kindness. You have all sorts. We spoke about this a while back. Chesed Elyon is the highest source of God's kindness. Avram was a direct recipient of this. Now, Avram is going to say, and this is his point that he's saying, as great as his chesed was, as awesome as his chesed was, and Avram was the ultimate in chesed. Now, we're going to use a word here that says, Ava Rabba, great love. One of the definitions of Ava Rabba is, when you have love, you can have Ava Zutta, which is called small love, and Ava Rabba, which is great love. What's the difference of great love and small love? It's not a small piece of chicken or a big piece of chicken. I love a small piece of chicken, a big piece of chicken a lot, or a son or a grandson. Ava Ava Rabba, Ava Zutta is, Ava Zutta means I am part of it. I'm part of the story. I have such an appreciation and geschmack and a joy and a well-being from this. I have so much love for this, which the center of the story is me. I have so much love. Ava Rabba means there's no more me. It's just love. Love for this. And it's not this that the person is or does or wants. It's love for the essence of the person. It's not even about the thing, but it's not about. It's just a love for the person themselves. And this is talking about Hashem. The Ava Rabba Hashem is, it's not that I love Hashem. All my existence is love for Hashem. The famous joke we said many times about the guy eating the fish. I love the fish. A person can have a relationship with a spouse, and this is something which I find is the easiest way to understand. When a person gets married, the earliest stages of the relationship is the most selfish love in the world. It means I love the person. Why? Because they complete me, they make me feel whole, they make me happy. It's all about how the person makes me feel. That's fine, because I'm not talking about a child, I'm talking about a spouse. When you meet a person, the attraction, if anything besides that, you're living in Disneyland. A real relationship begins because a person makes me happy, the person makes me complete, the person brings to my life the dimensions that I'm missing. There's all the things you talk about. It's all about me. That's an immature new love, how couples start off. As time goes by, it's much less about what the person provides for me. It's just a love for the person. And the proof is, when love is real, if God forbid the things that attract you in the first place are gone, unfortunately somebody gets ill, something happens, unfortunate the world has very painful things, my love doesn't go away. Why? Yes, I met you and I started loving you because of these things, but that was my immature love. Now I love you just for who you are. So now we're getting closer to real love, where it's not about me anymore. But the less I'm in the picture, the more it's called Ava Rabba. And the deeper you get to that point where there's no more me, it's just that person. I don't have my own wants. I don't have my own interests. What does it mean? You know what I want? Whatever my beloved wants. Where do I want to go on vacation? Where do I want to sit? What music do I want? What food do I want? Where do I want to sit? There's no more what I want. I lost myself. Avram was that world. In relationship to people, how he treated every traveler that came by, how he treated every person in his house as a host in his different tents, and how he related to Hashem. It doesn't mean that everything Hashem wanted was easy for him. Whereas when you love someone so much, and this is why the Akedah, for example, he was able to do it because of his true love for Hashem. He put aside all his feelings. But he had feelings. That's why it's called a test. He had feelings for his son. If he didn't have feelings, it wouldn't be called a test. So there is some person left, but I'm driven completely not myself. So Avram represented this idea. He was the ultimate in love. Nevertheless, he says, my love is only dust and ashes compared to the love of Chesed Elyon. And let's see what he says here. It's an unbelievable idea. He says, Oyev es HaKadosh Baruch Hu ava gedele v'yena. He loved Hashem with, top of page 242. He loved Hashem with such a great love. Kol kach, so much. Achenasem arkavel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He became a chariot for God. What does that mean, a chariot? There's a difference between a slave and a chariot. A slave, or someone who's completely given to a master, whether I don't want to talk about modern day slaves, we talk about slaves in its essence form, means I do whatever I'm a loyal slave. I do whatever my master asks. But there's me and there's my master, and I agree to do it. A chariot loses all identity. A chariot, when he's following the horse and the rider, doesn't say, okay, you know what? Because of my dedication, whenever my master turns left, I'm turning left. You don't have a will for yourself. You don't have a drive. I attach myself like a piece of a train to a train in front of me, and I go. That's how Avram was. He did not have any self. It was completely. So you might say, oh, this was the ultimate one with Hashem. Watch what he says here. He says, second line, third word. The salka daita chamina, you would think that the level of chesed and the level of love which is found in God's spheres, which is the source of Avram's love and chesed, he may ein visug muhus midas avad shel Avram Avinu shalom, is the same exact as it was by Avram Avinu. That you might say, you know what, Avram was such a great love, and he became a chariot for godliness. That you got to say that what Hashem had and what Avram had was identical. The only difference is one is God, so it's bigger and stronger, and one is his, so it's small, but the same exact thing. And actually, he could love and the flaw in men, and obviously, it's just that Hashem's godliness, love, and chesed is just much bigger. So really, Avram and God have the same exact love. And it's just that Hashem's love is bigger. I got a bigger piece of the pie, you got a smaller piece of the pie, but the same exact pie. And we know in general about when it comes to the godly spheres, it doesn't have a beginning or an end. Their own. So you would say Avram and Hashem, it's the same exact identical love and chesed, same exact, except Hashem has it in an infinite way, because Hashem is infinite, and Hashem's, therefore, godliness and spheres are infinite. But when it comes to the human being, the soul of a person, at the end of the day, Avram's body had a shape. It was a certain height, it was a certain width, it was a certain length, it was a certain time that existed in. It was limited in time and space, and therefore, it's a limited type of love. But it's identical, the same pie. Just one got an endless amount of pie, and one got one slice of pie. But it's identical pie. You'll say true that it's limited. This is all what you might think. And you'll say true that it's a limited, and therefore it's not an infinite love. But you would think you might think that the middays found in Avraham Avinu are identical in its essence, in its fabric, and its makeup, and its structure as God's spheres. And he said, no, it's not true. This is what he says. He says, no, it's not the same. We should know, says Avraham Avinu, even though I seem to be a Makava, and I am a Makava, and I seem to be identical to God. I'm so close to God, I'm one with God, and we're intermingled, and there's no separation between my wagon and his pulling me. You should know what I am is like ashes compared to the original product. And he's going to say, I'll say it outside first, then we'll say it inside, we'll finish with this. Maybe we'll start this again next week again, because it's a phenomenal idea.
I'm trying to understand something. Can you exchange Merkava for vessel? You became a vessel?
It's not the same thing. It's similar, but a vessel doesn't function. A Merkava has a quality to it that if a vessel just becomes a vessel. I'm a cup. Avram had function. He went, he did, he loved. But everything he loved was whatever God loved. It was automatically, I love what God loved. No one had to tell him, by the way, this is what you should love. He didn't have to be told. He loved what God loved. He what's the word? He could not stand. He despised. He despised that which was anti-God. He anything which is a quality that we should have, he automatically did. The Rebbe Rashab says, he wants to ask Rebbe Rashab, how did you know because he started washing a certain way, different than everybody washed. He washed 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And they said to him, how do you know? Till then it was like 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1. He said, since I'm a child, my body was trained to do whatever was right in Torah. That's how I know. If my body is doing it, it's right. Think about it. If my body is doing it, it's right, which means that's my body. I can't do otherwise. Avraham Avinu had that body. A body that, but it still functioned.
Hashem programmed him.
Or he was programmed from his own work. Either Hashem programmed him to be so great, or he programmed himself through tremendous effort. He seems to be Avraham, one who discovered God. Some tzaddikim are born pre-programmed. That's more like an angel. That's what angels are, pre-programmed. Great tzaddikim, some are born that way. They're all born with a certain potential that not everyone has. But Avraham, we find that he had 3 stages of growth. When he was 3, when he was 40 and 48, that he became his person. So he was programmed to be able to reach that level. He had a special neshama. He did it through his effort. He studied, he learned, he searched. And this is one of the reasons why we don't talk about Avraham until he's 75. We're telling you that a person should know a Jew. We don't care what your background was, what you did, who you were. Our question is, what are you doing today? Who are you today? You want to be last year I davened, last year I sinned. No one cares. I mean, for right now, well, that is one thing. Are you now putting on tefillin? Are you lighting Shabbos candles? Are you giving tzedakah? You're being kind. That's it. Last year you messed up. Okay. Last year you were so righteous. Okay. Who are you today? So that's the lesson of Rabbi Avinu. So yeah. So truth is, his background seemed to be self-earned, but the point is, he came to a point that he was absolute recover. So you might say, okay, so he's identical to God. Says Avraham Avinu, and Alder was telling us, you should know. While it's true that we're so close, and I'll tell you, I'm going to say the outside now just for a minute, and next week we'll start the whole piece inside again. Because it's a chunk of information. He said like this: every single thing in the world is made up of 4 elements. In Torah's perspective, and science has similar views, I think. It's made up of earth, wind, fire, and water. Of those 4, one is the most materialistic. It's earth. Fire and air are the definition in general of a spiritual and material is, could you measure it with a shape or not? The less you can measure it, the less it's physical, it's more spiritual. Like wind, you could measure wind power and force, but wind itself, air, you can't really measure air by easily. It's more abstract. Fire also, it's very abstract. Even water, it's fluid. It doesn't have a nature of being. Earth is a solid mass. You can weigh it, you can measure it much more than even than water. So the most base part of every existence is the earth in it. The other 3 elements are more character and certain traits that it gets. So if we take a tree for an example, a tree is made up of all 4 elements. If you burn the tree, what happens? One of those elements are still there, because the smoke, when it disappears, we know now from science, no matter and no energy is gone. It just gets transformed. So what happened you had let's say take a log that weighed 100 pounds and you burnt it, and now you left this black powder that's there. Where did it go? Well, some became back to its source of fire, some became air, some became wind, and some of it turned to ash. Now the ash is most similar to the earth that was in the tree. That was a big part of the tree's growth, was earth, but it's not the same. If you look at ash, look at earth, they're very different. Eventually they could recompose and come back to itself. But right now, ash is not the same thing. So he's saying, just like the ash has nothing to do with the original product, even to the earth, even though it's the same exact element, that's how similar I am, says Avraham Avinu, my love to Hashem, Hashem's love. It's the same exact thing, yes, but it's not the same exact thing at all. And he wants you to know that while it's true, it's very important, because we're going to talk about this verse. I'm going to think, oh, so Hashem is kind. Like, I give food to hungry people. I'm kind. Nice. It's a kind, it's a giving, but the same. You're as similar as the ash of a tree to the original earth of the tree that was there, to the original tree that was there. That's how identical you are. So on the one hand, this thing Avraham Avinu is one with its source, the closest you can get Chesed Hashem's Chesed, Chesed Elyon. At the same exact time, don't for 1 second think that it's really that similar. Because we're talking about 2, one is godly, one is spiritual godliness, and one is physical human behavior. And the same thing will be all the things. And this is a very important thing. With this introduction, now we can have the thing that on one hand know that what we're saying is accurate in its description, because we're describing it correctly. No different than a blind man saying about colors, this is a warm color, this is a cold color. How does he know? Because someone told me to say that. So I can say it. But what he thinks is warm and cold means nothing until his eyes are open and he sees, oh, that's what you meant, that blue is a colder color and red's a warmer color. I see what you mean. Meaning that's when you can start understanding a little bit. and it doesn't mean that the color is actually warm or cold if you touch it. So there's expressions that we use that it's correct, but it's also very far from being exact to what the source is. And then with this introduction, the Alter Rebbe is going to introduce now what are the 10 spheres, what are the spheres. So we'll stop here, but it's a phenomenal thing that on one hand we should know that the DNA is identical to its source. At the same time, there's nothing similar about it. It couldn't be any more different than like the ashes to the tree. All right, stop here.